After 3 years of being her possession taken by force, his patron suddenly went bankrupt. Isabella left him a sum of money and calmly prepared to kill herself. Before she went, she begged him not to mock her and told him that he was finally free, but he just gave a slight shake of his head. Now it was his turn to do the taking. The news of Isabella's bankruptcy spread like wildfire, and it had to be true because her frenemies were already starting to make moves on him. The quickest way to break a woman is to steal her man. He snarled at the woman on the phone who was making lewd comments. What's wrong with you? If you're that horny, use your own hand. Ignoring her humiliated rage on the other end, he hung up and blocked the number. A soft, tired-sounding laugh came from behind him. Isabella came over from the foyer, wrapped her arms around him as they sat on the couch, and leaned heavily into his embrace. I've never seen you lose your temper before. I thought you were a puppy, but it turns out you have a wild side. Isabella's lips curved into a smirk. A shame I found out too late. There won't be any more chances. A queen is a queen, he guessed, able to smile even when she's broke and destitute. The air was thick with unspoken things, and then she suddenly asked, "Where's the card I gave you? I transferred $2 million into it. Felix, just as you always wanted. You're free." As Isabella spoke, half of her face was lost in the shadows, her expression unreadable. He did always crave freedom, but he didn't think he ever truly planned on leaving her. Being with her was great. Plenty of money, amazing in bed, gorgeous, just a little too controlling. He wasn't a pushover, so he couldn't help but run his mouth and talk some smack now and then. He thought for a moment, feeling it was wrong to be snarky now, and just asked, "Are you really bankrupt?" She turned her head away and gave a soft sigh. The sound had barely faded before she added, "Please don't mock me, and you can leave now." Her legs were rubbing together restlessly, a clear sign of the war raging within her. He asked again, "You gave me all your money, so what's your plan?" A long silence was his only answer. He tossed the dagger he'd found in the bathroom onto the table. "Planning on this?" Isabella's voice dropped. "Don't talk about it." She pressed again. "You always wanted to be free, didn't you? You can go. I won't force you anymore. I don't have the power to." He remained as nonchalant as ever, not rushing to give her an answer. He couldn't even recall how pathetic he was when he first met Isabella, only that when he was so broke he was about to sell his body to pay off debts. She bought him with a black card and took him home. He'd heard of her before then, of course, and none of it was good. He tried to escape more than once, but he was always caught. She had a tracker implanted in his tooth, cameras installed in his room, and he could only use the phone and laptop she provided. She controlled every aspect of his life, right down to the flavor of his toothpaste. His resistance was like a kitten scratching to her, but every act of defiance earned a punishment. Sometimes he'd be tied to the piano, other times strapped to a pommel horse, always in poses and positions that pleased her. He was forbidden from contacting anyone she didn't approve of, man or woman. If she ever caught him, that person would vanish from his life completely. He was terrified of her for a long time, and their relationship had become something twisted and impure. His affection for her was always laced with fear, but human emotions are impossible to control, especially now that well, maybe he could finally be the one in charge. At that thought, he shook his head. "Now it's my turn to do the taking. What are you going to do about it?" Isabella hesitated, seemingly unable to speak the words. "Do the taking?" He paused, thinking, "Damn, I was too impulsive." Whatever, he was all in now. "Let's just say I'm paying for your services now. Thanks to you, I've saved a bit of money over the years, invested in some real estate. If I sell it all off, plus the luxury cars and watches you bought me, it should be enough to cover some of your debts." She seemed slightly moved, but then her brow furrowed again. "For someone who was supposedly a captive, you have a very clear inventory of your assets." He saw her eyes narrow and her body tense, poised to run at any second. The mood chilled instantly with her words. He instinctively shifted back, and she immediately shot up, planting her hands on the sofa on either side of him, trapping him between her arms in that old commanding way. Always trying to run. Her focus sharpened as if she was about to say more, but she changed her tone. "Well, now you get your wish, Felix. Just go before I change my mind." For the first time in 3 years, he rolled his eyes at her and pointed to the video doorbell's monitor. "Seriously? You think you have time for regrets? There's a mob of creditors right outside. The words had barely left his mouth when Isabella glanced at the screen and suddenly shoved him against the door. "I've never tried this while debt collectors are at the door," she murmured. "Isabella," he hissed. The commotion inside seemed to alert the people outside. Through the door, he was forced to watch the piercing stares of the men on the monitor. The woman responsible for all this pressed against him, her voice a low whisper only he could hear. "You can scream a little louder in a bit. Let them hear you so they'll break in and kill me." As she spoke, Isabella ignored his protests and pinned his hands behind his back. "Damn it, I hated this position." He tried to struggle when she reached for a rope, but she just muttered to herself, completely unfazed. "I owe so much money. They'll probably chop me up and sell me for parts." Hilarious. Who would even care? He didn't know how much time passed before his wrists were finally free. He furiously threw the rope onto the mat, one hand on his hip, the other jabbing a finger toward her nose. "Don't you forget who's doing the taking now. I'm your patron, and you will do as I say. So what are your demands?" Isabella asked, her composure already returned, a playful glint in her eye. "Patron? First," he said after a moment's thought. "No killing yourself, and cut the act." He tossed a new credit card on the table, putting on an air of superiority. "This is in my name. It has all my savings from the past few years, probably around 40 or 50 million. As she stared in astonishment, he produced several property deeds and a pile of watch boxes, complete with their certificates of authenticity. "Liquidate these. That should be another 9 figures at least." He put his hands on his hips, savoring the right to posture that he'd just stolen from her. "Use it all to pay your debts. At least it'll buy you the right to live." "All right," Isabella said, her eyes scanning the items. "What do you want from me?" He didn't like her tone. It made his grand, dramatic rescue feel like just another way to manipulate her. But it didn't matter because throwing money at someone felt absolutely incredible. "I'm going to have this tracker removed from my tooth," he said, watching her expression carefully. "And then I'm going to have it put in you." Isabella lifted her gaze to meet his, and that simple movement made a cold sweat break out on his back. Some hidden part of him, conditioned by years of random punishments, had learned to sense danger before his mind did. He recalled everything she'd done to him and continued, "From now on, your every move is under my control. You'll report to me before you go anywhere, and you are not to be seen with any men. Oh," he added meticulously, "and I don't like mint toothpaste. Get lemon from now on." Isabella's eyes never left him. After a long moment, she spoke slowly. "You're surprisingly good at this game of taking." "So," she asked, her tone unreadable, "are you going to punish me as harshly as I punished you?" "In your dreams." In the days that followed, he acted on every twisted little fantasy he had, inflicting on Isabella all the torments she had once inflicted on him. That tracking device was now firmly embedded in the third molar from the back of Isabella's upper jaw. Every evening he made her wear nothing but an apron and perform the act of cooking for him. Yes, perform, because she couldn't actually cook. But he liked watching a woman in the kitchen. Everyone has their kinks. She used to make him wear fetish outfits and pretend to give lectures for her. From the day she agreed to his taking, she lost all control over her electronic devices. Her phone, her tablet, her laptop, they were all logged into his accounts, allowing him to monitor her every move. As for her physical freedom, he didn't even need to enforce it. With the entire world's creditors looking for her, she couldn't go out anyway. Late one night, Isabella, who'd been under house arrest for days, was squatting on a chair to eat her dinner. He watched her from the sofa, enjoying the view. "I like that chair you're on," he said, a sudden idea striking him. Isabella instinctively ran a hand over the chair's surface, testing its hardness and angles. "I don't think so. It's too hard. It would hurt you." "Why would I be in pain?" He raised an eyebrow. "When you'll be under me." Isabella set down her bowl slowly, swallowed her last bite of food, and said, "All right. I'd love to see you on top, working hard and dancing for me." What kind of twisted thing was that to say? He was the one in charge. On another late night, Isabella was busy with something at her desk. He leaned against the door frame, watching. After some time, she took a call. "Do it now." He quickly slid under the desk. Thanks to Isabella's particular tastes, he knew the 2 front casters on this office chair could be locked. While Isabella was arguing with the person on the phone, he stealthily locked the wheels, and by the time she tried to move, she was trapped. The person on the phone was relentless, their voice growing louder and more aggressive. Meanwhile, Isabella was becoming increasingly distracted by his advances. He kissed his way up the path of her unbuttoned blouse, then tilted the chair all the way back. Isabella fell silent, the only sound in the room the angry tirade of the creditor on the phone. He mouthed to her, "I thought you liked doing this while debt collectors are calling. Go on." Isabella's face flushed with a mixture of anger and arousal, and she bit her lip to stay quiet. He didn't stop, and the sleek, serious-looking black office chair began to rock with the sound of intermittent curses from the phone as their soundtrack. Just as they reached the peak, he abruptly stopped and held the still active phone up for her. "Sorry," he said to the person on the other end. "Did I interrupt something?" Isabella's eyes were glazed over, filled with a mixture of frustration and disbelief as she watched him walk out of the room. Damn, that felt good. He was very pleased with this new freewheeling lifestyle, but it wasn't long before the creditors were back at their door. All that money wasn't enough to fill the hole. Isabella fidgeted with the edge of her apron. It snowballed. It just kept getting bigger. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? You looked so happy." Isabella said, "I wanted to let you have a few more good days." The creditors camped outside their door for 3 solid days. After they'd eaten every last bit of food in the house, Isabella finally snapped. "Mr. Patron, has there ever been a more pathetic-kept woman in all of history?" "Thanks. And I've never been such a pathetic patron," he retorted. He patted her head like she was a puppy and, ignoring the thunderous look on her face, called 911. After giving the address, he told the operator, feeling a bit embarrassed, "Hello, officer. There's a group of people here gambling illegally and engaging in public indecency. Could you send a car?" Less than 20 minutes later, the sound of sirens sent the crowd of creditors scattering. "Humph," Isabella scoffed, hands on her hips, her expression a mix of disdain and grudging admiration. He shot back, not to be outdone. "At least now we can go get some food." He told the police the truth, and he ended up getting a 3-day stay in a county jail for their troubles. After they got out, the first thing he did was take Isabella to his old apartment, a small place that was still decorated just as he'd left it, cozy and sweet. As he was fondly reminiscing, Isabella broke her silence for the day. "Shut up. Is it your turn to talk?" He gave her a light slap. "I gave you all my properties and all my money to pay off your debts. This place was my grandmother's. You should be grateful we have a roof over our heads at all." Isabella was silent for a moment. "I remember your grandmother was very ill. Pancreatic cancer," he said, starting to tidy up. "If you hadn't given me the money, her last days would have been filled with pain. I didn't do anything to help you." He looked at her seriously. "Patients with pancreatic cancer suffer immensely at the end. Back then, I had no money for her treatment. I couldn't even afford the painkillers, couldn't even give her a decent meal." "Felix," Isabella began, trying to change the subject. "Money solves a lot of problems, like letting my grandmother die with some dignity." "Is that why you're taking me in now?" she asked, staring at him. "Because my money helped your grandmother?" He stared back at her. This wasn't the right moment, not when they were this pathetic, to say, "I'm taking you in because I kind of like you and I can't stand the thought of you being torn apart by creditors, and I don't want to see the high and mighty Isabella fall so hard. Since you're bankrupt anyway, you might as well just stay with me from now on." He hesitated, then put on his best patron air. "You could say that. Besides, I want a taste of what it's like to torment you, and this is the perfect opportunity, isn't it?" She fell silent again. Bankruptcy makes you pessimistic, and pessimism makes you quiet. Get it? He turned and started ordering takeout on his phone. The moment he confirmed the order, he looked up to see her face rushing toward his, her lips crashing down on him. Her soft chest pressed him into the sofa cushions, his hands were pinned above his head, and his legs were quickly restrained. "MPH," he protested, his anger rising. She paused for a second, then her hands moved with lightning speed, clothes flying everywhere, before she flipped them over. "Fine, you can be on top, Mr. Patron," she said. Later, Isabella tried to justify herself. "You said you wanted to torment me, didn't you? So I let you." His face was burning. "Shut up. What the hell are you talking about?" Isabella's eyes were apologetic. "You're just so different now. I can't seem to control myself around you. I'm sorry. If only I still had my money." She started to say more, but he grabbed the nearest pillow and threw it at her, which finally shut her up. After they ate, He started to clean up the apartment. It was a small one-bedroom place with only one bed. "I can sleep on the couch," Isabella offered quickly. "I'm the patron here. I make the rules," he said, pointing to the bed. "You take the bed, I'll take the couch." Late that night, after hearing the thud of someone falling off the couch for the 10th time, he realized the former queen wasn't cut out for sofa sleeping. At his instruction, Isabella quickly scrambled into the bed. She snuggled close, her voice a small whisper. "Felix, being like this, it feels like we're a married couple." His heart skipped a beat, but he scoffed. "Dream on. We're not even a couple. I'm your patron and your creditor." Then he rolled over, biting the blanket to muffle his silent sobs. He finally got to be the patron, but now all the money was gone. Now he was bankrupt too. Even though they were flat broke, he still didn't trust Isabella to be out on her own. So he had her stay home and research ways to make money while he secretly went out to find a job. A patron has to maintain some dignity after all. Realizing he'd become a kept man right out of college and had zero work experience, he opened up Reddit and searched, "What jobs are good for college grads with no experience?" The answers were grim. If you're fit, do the gig economy triathlon of DoorDash, Uber, and Amazon delivery. If you're older, the 3 S's of security, sanitation, or senior care. If you have no skills, the unholy trinity of factory work, customer service, or sales. And if you wanted a real, life-changing gamble, there were always high-risk ventures abroad. He silently closed his phone. Had the job market really gotten this bad? He opened a job app and after some searching found what looked like a decent office job, 9 to 5, $20,000 a month. He clicked on it. The location? Vietnam. Right. He might be inexperienced, but he wasn't an idiot. After half a day of searching, he found a job as a housekeeper. The couple who employed him would leave for work, and he'd go in, clean the house, do the laundry, and that was it. For that little work, they were paying $30,000 a month. They had to be loaded. The agent from the service confirmed the details with him. "They're in a hurry. It would be best if you could start this afternoon." She said it like it was the most normal thing in the world. You know how it is with these workaholics. The house falls apart if no one's there to look after it for a day. He looked at her blankly. He really didn't know. Isabella had been a workaholic, but her life had never been chaotic. "Did you get that?" the agent pressed. "You should get ready to start this afternoon." He nodded quickly. "I understand." The job was far from his apartment, so he grabbed a quick bite to eat on the way. While he was eating, Isabella called. "Where are you?" "Out," he said, his mouth full of hamburger. "Do you have enough money?" she asked. He almost choked on his burger. The irony made him laugh, so hard his cheeks ached. He fought the urge to mess with her and just made up an excuse. "A friend of mine is going through a bad breakup. I'm just hanging out with him for the day. We'll probably play some cards, maybe shoot some hoops." She listened silently on the other end. When he was done, she finally asked, "So you're not having dinner with me?" "I'll be back tonight. I can bring you whatever you want for dinner." She didn't reply, so he kept talking, mostly to himself. "I'm a pretty good patron, aren't I? I even report my whereabouts to my kept woman, unlike some people I know who never bothered to do the same for me." This time, Isabella's reply was swift. "Right." Thinking back, as domineering and absolute as Isabella was, she had never just vanished without a word. "Well, I'm not vanishing, am I?" he said. "I'm just out for a bit. A patron has to have a little freedom, right? It feels like we're a married couple." Her words from the other night flashed in his mind, and before he knew it, he was saying, "We're not actually married, you know. Your control issues are showing." The bright sun outside was making his head swim, and all he could think about was finishing his burger and looking up tips for his new housekeeping job. He was so preoccupied that he didn't notice how unearthly quiet the other end of the line had become. He waited for her to reply while he finished his burger, and it was only after he'd swallowed the last bite that he realized she had already hung up. He didn't think much of it. Right now, making money and doing a good job for his employer were the most important things. He needed money to take care of her. The thought that for the time being Isabella was completely dependent on him put him in an excellent mood. He arrived at the apartment 20 minutes early. For $30,000 a month, he expected a disaster zone or a long list of demands, but it was just a normal apartment, and it wasn't even dirty. The laundry hamper only had a few women's dresses that looked like they might not have even been worn, and the fridge just had a few bottles of water. He did a quick tour and found a note on the dining table. All requirements were given to the agency. Just complete the tasks. That's it. He checked every room. All the trash cans combined wouldn't even fill a single bag. $1,000 a day for this. He felt guilty, so he filled a bucket and wiped down every smooth surface in the apartment twice. He took the few clothes out of the closet, aired them out, and ironed them. He polished every dish and glass in the kitchen and the living room bar. Only after making sure the entire apartment was spotless did he leave with a tiny, palm-sized bag of trash. After locking the door, he thought for a second, then took a picture of it and sent it to his employer via iMessage. All done and locked up. She replied almost instantly. Great. Thank you for your hard work. There's $200 under the doormat. Buy yourself a drink. He was shocked and quickly typed back, Oh no, you don't have to do that. You're already paying me so generously. I couldn't possibly take more. I get home very late. If you don't take it, the building's cleaning crew probably will. The money won't be coming back to me either way. He hesitated. All right then, thank you very much. So rich, she tips $200 for a bottle of water, grinning. He immediately bought dinner and headed home. When he got home, he didn't see Isabella right away. The apartment was so small that a single glance was enough to find her sitting on the tiny balcony, staring out at the city. He set down the takeout and gently called her in for dinner. She was cooperative, getting up from the small balcony couch immediately. Her long legs were enough to make anyone jealous. She crossed to the table in 2 strides, set out her food, and began to eat in silence. He sighed internally. She would never have eaten cheap takeout like this before. The whole evening was unerringly normal. She finished her food, washed her dish, and then got on her laptop to work. He, on the other hand, was exhausted from his day's work, so he just took a shower and went to bed. In that state between sleep and waking, he thought he heard a voice whisper, You want to run, don't you? But you can't bring yourself to do it. The words faded away like a dream. The next few days passed in much the same way. He spent his days cleaning diligently and his nights falling into an exhausted sleep. Isabella, unable to leave the house, was constantly on her laptop, working furiously. Every day he loved his new job. He never saw his employer. All communication was through notes or iMessage. The quality of his work was entirely up to his own standards. After a month, the $30,000 was deposited right on time. He was so excited he could have jumped for joy. By the second month, he was more motivated than ever. Isabella seemed to be making some progress too. The perpetual frown on her face had eased slightly in the last couple of days, though she was still very quiet. The apartment was unusually clean today. Even the dress that was usually in the hamper was already washed, dried, and hanging up. He walked through the apartment. The trash was empty, the floors spotless. He felt like he was the only dirty thing in the entire place. Just as he was wondering what was going on, a woman in loungewear emerged from the bedroom. He jumped, and she spoke first. I'm your employer, Sarah. He immediately plastered on a smile. Oh, hello, Miss Sarah. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you'd be home today. Sarah gave him a warm smile. So, how do you like working here? Is it tiring? Tiring. With a workload this light, who was he to complain about being tired? Her asking made him feel a little ashamed. The job is great. I should be thanking you. Sarah walked over to the kitchen island and poured him a glass of water. Take a break. You don't need to clean today. Maybe because they were in her home, she seemed very forward and familiar. He took the glass awkwardly. Well, if there's no cleaning to do, I'll get out of your hair and let you rest. He finished the water and got ready to leave. Felix, the woman said suddenly, her tone changing. She sounded like she knew him well. You don't remember me? We were in college together. He was stunned. In college, he was always either in class or at work. He never paid much attention to his classmates. The last few years with Isabella, he'd lost touch with everyone from his past. He never bothered to reconnect. He racked his brain, but he couldn't place her at all. Never mind, she said. You never paid much attention to anyone back then. It's been years, so it's normal you don't remember. So he asked the most important question. Did you know it was me before you hired me? Did you see my file at the agency, recognize me, and then decide to hire me? Is that why the pay is so much higher than the market rate? Was it a special favor? You're not going to heroically quit over this, are you? He wouldn't, not when he needed the money this badly, but he felt indebted. It was obvious he was taking advantage of her generosity. As if sensing his hesitation, Sarah offered him an out. If you feel bad about it, you could do me a favor. What is it? I have a meeting here tomorrow afternoon. Someone wants to discuss some business with me. Could you stay and help out? You just need to clean up a little when we're done. He thought it was going to be some huge request. Of course, that's no problem at all. That's part of my job anyway. It's not a favor. Sarah took an elegant sip of her water. Well, thank you in advance. The next day, determined to earn that $30,000, he arrived early. Sarah was home, resting on the sofa with her eyes closed, while he began cleaning nonstop. He could feel her eyes on him, watching him, sizing him up. It made him uncomfortable, but he had a job to do. A little while later, the doorbell rang. Sarah gestured for him to get the door. He nodded and hurried over. He hadn't intended to stare at his employer's guest, but the moment he opened the door, his world froze. His scalp tingled and his eyes locked with the person standing there, unable to look away. Felix. Her saying his name was enough to make his knees weak. Isabella, you're here, Sarah said from behind him. She stood right behind him, positioning herself so they were side by side, like a couple greeting a guest. Come in, we've been waiting for you. We? What did she mean, we? There was no we. He was just about to start explaining all his recent absences, all the lies he told about not being home, but as Sarah stepped aside, Isabella brushed right past him and entered the apartment. She didn't say a single word to him, but the look in her eyes, shifting from shocked confusion to a cold, dawning comprehension, sent a chill down his spine. The sight of her indifferent back as she walked away filled him with a sudden panic. Sarah poured her a cup of the tea he had made, then turned to him. I have read the follow-up content. As requested, I will rewrite the text, replacing the names Ethan with Felix and Chloe with Isabella to maintain consistency with the previous response. I will also correct any misspelled words, maintain the third-person perspective, and keep the plot, grammar, and word count consistent with the original text. The final response will be a single, whole paragraph of text.